Recording in progress.
All right, it's 6:01. Let me call the December 11th Alameda County Water District Board Directors meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Director Akbari. Here. Gunther.
Here.
Sethy.
Here.
Weed.
Here.
And Huang.
Here. Next is salute to the flag. Director Akbari, would you do the honor?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we move on to public comments, I believe General Manager Stevenson has some housekeeping remarks.
Indeed, I do. I just wanted to welcome everybody to this meeting of the ACWD Board of Directors. My name is Ed Stevenson, and I serve as the district's general manager. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public present in person who wishes to make comments may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. This board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. Again, thank you all for attending, and President Huang, that completes my housekeeping remarks.
Thank you very much. And the next item is public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed on the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. A 5-minute limit is customary. Members of the public who wish to address the board on a scheduled agenda item will be given the opportunity to do so. With that, I would like to open the public comments. I am not seeing any members of the public attending in person. Let's open it up to our online attendees. If you wish to address the board during this public comment period, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I am not seeing any hands. All right, then let's move on to the next item, which is consent calendar. Do I have a motion to add any items to the consent calendar?
You make a motion to add items 5.3, 5.5, and 5.6. I had some comments on 5.4, the muscle invasion.
A second.
Right, motion and second, roll call, please.
Director Akbari. Aye. Gunther.
Aye.
Sethy.
Aye.
Weed.
Aye.
And Huang.
Aye. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar as amended?
I'll move the adoption of consent as amended.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Director Akbari. Aye. Gunther.
Aye.
Sethy.
Aye.
Weed.
Aye.
And Huang.
Aye. Next item would be, shall we take it in numeric order? So start with item 5.1?
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay, item 5.1 is reorganization of the Board of Directors. Yes, it's that time of year. California Water Code Section 30520 provides that the Board of Directors shall 1, elect one of their number president, and 2, may elect one of their number vice president pursuant to Section 2.2 of the Alameda County Water District Board Rules and Code of Conduct and Resolution 1871 adopted December 10, 1970. This election is typically held at the first regular meeting in December each year. The directors who are elected president and vice president assume office at the close of the meeting at which they are elected. The board may consider each resolution separately or in 2 actions or together in 1 action. So staff's recommendation is by motion, adopt resolutions electing 1, a president, and 2, a vice president of the board.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we take maybe 2 items and we'll do president first, and
Okay.
I will nominate Director Akbari for president.
I will second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Director Akbari. Aye. Gunther.
Aye.
Sethy.
Aye.
Weed.
Aye.
And Huang.
Aye.
And with that, I'll nominate Director Weed as the vice president for next year.
I'll second.
All right, so before we do roll call, I omitted to open it up for public comment. My apologies to our online attendees. If anybody online wish to address the board on item 5.1, please raise your hand in the Zoom app.
May I ask a procedural question? I'm not sure if we're seeing the full list of people that are in the.
You're correct. You're not right now. I am, but we'll expand the list here so you can see.
Yeah, but if a participant raised their hand, I believe they'll be up
Yes,
to the
we would
top of the
definitely,
list, so we should be able to see it.
See now.
So we have a motion and second, and I'm not hearing any public comments, so roll call, please. Right? I think,
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
aye, congratulations.
You.
All right.
Congratulations and thank you, President Huang, for your service this year. And look forward to working with Directors Akbari and Weed coming up in 2026.
And I want to extend that appreciation. I think Judy, Director Wong, you run excellent meetings. You keep everybody on time. And are courteous with the public. Sometimes you scold your board members.
My apology for that.
But your management skills,
Yeah,
for meeting management skills are excellent.
thank you. I'm actually looking forward to moving down to that end of the table. All right, with that, I believe is item 5. Okay. Let's move on to item 5.2, please.
Okay, item 5.2, more critical business. This is adoption of the 2026 calendar of regular board meetings and board workshops and special board meetings. So section 7.2 of the Alameda County Water District Board Rules and Code of Conduct state that regular board meetings are generally held on the second Thursday of each month at the hour of 6 p.m., with the exception of the April regular board meeting, which will be held on the second Tuesday of each April. In addition to the regular board meeting, staff is also planning to conduct several board workshops and special board meetings to cover specific topics during calendar year 2026. Such additional meetings are special board meetings pursuant to section 7.3 and 7.5 of the board rules. Regular and special board meetings are open to the public. In order to provide advance notice to the public and also to allow board members and staff to plan their annual schedule, staff is proposing the attached schedule of regular board meetings and board workshops and special board meetings for board adoption. Approval of this item will assist the district in achieving strategic plan goal number 5, promote clear and open communications, outreach, and engagements with customers and communities. So staff's recommendation is by motion, adopt the proposed 2026 calendar of regular board meetings and special board meetings of the Board of Directors.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? I'm not seeing any questions or comments from our online attendees. If you wish to address the board or have any questions for staff on this issue, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I'm not seeing any hands, and we still do not have any members of the public in attendance in person. So with that, do I have a motion?
I'll move the 2026 calendar.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. With that, let's move on to item 5.4.
Okay, item 5.4, authorization to execute 2 agreements regarding the 2026 invasive mussel prevention programs at the Quarry Lakes Regional Recreation Area and Lake Del Val. And to, would the board like staff to introduce the item, or did you just have a quick
Just a notation, comment on it, particularly coming out of presentations made at the Aqua Conference in San Diego. The golden mussel has been added to this year's list. And it would appear that that is a far more destructive or obtrusive infestation than either the zebra or this the quagga. There were statements made by Contra Costa that they had screens that they pulled up that had been literally clogged in the delta. And also the golden apparently is spreading far more rapidly than the other mussels. So at some point, what is our, when do we do a review to determine that we've entered to, that the program has failed?
Well, let me add to what Director Weed is saying, but there were comments made by several water districts that are no longer going to allow boat operations on their surface water areas. And East Bay Mud already bans it. I wonder if staff is looking at this, whether we may want to talk to East Bay Regional Park District and limit the boating activity on Quarry Lakes, and something needs to be figured out for Del Val as well.
Thank you. I agree.
Okay.
Was my next, might be the next question, but glad you brought it.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And we are talking with all of our partners about this issue. I agree with you. It's very important, and you know the solutions aren't always obvious, and so we are working on our own planning, but also talking with our partners. And I don't know, Ms. Heides, did you have anything to add to that at this point?
I think that covers it. I know there has, when the mussel was first discovered, many agencies did shut down boating. I am starting to hear noises about some of them are going to be ultimately opening back up with a lot of precautions in place. So I think, you know, there's still going to be a great demand for recreation. The nice thing is we've had these programs in place for many years. They cover the golden mussels as well. So we would catch a mussel coming in, whether it be golden, zebra, or quagga. So I'm thankful that we didn't have to start up a new program like some agencies are having to do now with this new threat.
Ms. Heides, it was also pointed out that in the past, the practice was to inspect the boats and chemically declean them. But now they're finding the mussels in people's fishing gear, their fishing boxes, their tackle boxes, things like that. And that becomes much harder to supervise, bringing something into a lake facility.
The other concern I had is that the only apparently known method to control, particularly the golden, is to poison the water supply and kill them all. And where it's non-potable, that may be an issue. I don't know what alternatives we have to do what they did in the Green River in Wyoming, just kill everything and then try and get rid of the invasive species.
You've heard my solution, electrocution.
Well, that doesn't work with.
All right. On that very happy note, any other questions or comments from the board?
It just that we come up with whatever contingency plan, put it in our contingency plan. What to do when the infestations reach us.
Great recommendation, but
And find it and get DWR to step up to say what they will do.
Actually, oh, sorry.
For algae, they've used copper sulfate in the Dyer Reservoir.
I believe staff has a answer.
Actually, DWR this is just sort of a routine item of the boat inspection program costs. DWR does have a lot of research going on right now, and they're learning a lot about the mussels and potential treatment options and such. So actually, between Mr. Stevenson's staff and mine, we're tracking this and starting to think about what that means for us if and when they do arrive here as well. So there is hopefully going to be some solutions that we're learning from DWR as they're the first to experience this.
And realize this goes beyond the water supply system and could go and get into our own distribution system.
Yeah, I'll add that we signed a contract earlier this week with a consultant that's going to do some analysis and look into a plan. And it's the same consultant that's been working with our agency partners, Zone 7 and in Valley Water.
Good to know. Thank you.
So let me open this up to our online members of the public. If you wish to address the board on this issue, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I'm not seeing any hands. Then do I have a motion for item 5.4?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
All right.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. And next item is supposed to be 5.7, but before we move to item 5.7, I believe Director Akbari, you have a statement to make?
Yes, I'm going to be recusing myself from item 5.7 due to a real property conflict that falls within 500 feet of the project.
Thank you. And let the record reflect that Director Akbari left the boardroom at 6:17. All right, item 5.7. please.
Okay, item 5.7 is authorization of amendment to professional services agreement for survey services in support of the Peralta Boulevard main renewal project. And Mr. Awoke will get us started on this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, board members, staff, and community members. As you know, staff has been working on ramping up our main renewal program. We have several projects in our CIP, Capital Improvement Program, and we are ready to get started on the Peralta Boulevard main renewal project. And as part of that project, we will be starting data collection and survey work. And we have a consultant that we've hired and we've been working with on, collecting survey information and mapping. And this item before the board is to amend that agreement with Sandis, the surveying consultant, to do topographic surveys and data collection so we can get started with the design work for the Peralta Boulevard main renewal project. With that, I'll read the summary and recommendation from staff, and I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have. Land survey services are required to support district ground monitoring of facilities as required by the California Division of Safety of Dams, as well as to support project designs, prepare base maps, prepare plats, and legal descriptions for easement acquisitions, and confirm property boundaries. The district maintains a multi-year services agreement with a licensed land surveyor to provide these services. Services are added to the agreement by amendment when required, and survey services are now needed for the Peralta Boulevard main renewal project. There is adequate funding in the current fiscal year project budget for this expenditure. Approval of this amendment will help meet the district's strategic plan goal 1.1, efficiently manage and maintain our infrastructure to ensure reliability. With that, staff's recommendation is by motion authorize the general manager to execute an amendment to the professional services agreement for ground monitoring survey with Sandis in an amount not to exceed $95,500 for survey services for the Peralta Boulevard main renewal project, job number 21517. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the board?
I
Director
have
Wee and Director Sethy?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So, since we're so close to the Hayward Fault right there, what kind of piping are we going to use? Is it going to be flexible steel? What's the diameter? Are we going to do anything like we've done work on other projects where we have kind of a piston?
Right, the fault
System.
crossing design, yeah, seismic. Sorry.
Question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
The Spring Valley built an aqueduct that came down Niles Canyon, but it continued on through to Newark. It was acquired by San Francisco PUC. I'd ask that as part of this review and analysis that we identify what right-of-way and remnants there may be of the extension of the Niles Canyon Aqueduct along Peralta. And that may give us some flexibility in relocation of a pipeline if we need to. Yeah, or be able to, if you have an existing pipe there, we could fit it inside, make it a lot easier just to put a new pipeline in.
Yes, so to answer both questions, so the first one is because this project crosses the fault line, the Hayward Fault, will the project consider any seismic retrofits or seismically resistant pipelines? And the answer to that question, yes. The basis of design will incorporate, all the constraints and the design criteria for the pipeline, including diameter of the pipe, as well as the location of the pipe, and then making sure we design for all the potential loads on the pipe, including earthquake forces.
I have been out several times during and after you finish the project that's closest to the railroad line at the end of Ford Lane and Bunting Lane, where you had the 4-foot diameter pipelines at the crossings. Are we doing anything above ground or is this all below ground?
This is all below ground. This is our distribution main, much like, the other projects we had before the board, the Driscoll Road or Alvarado now. So this is one of our distribution mains that we will be replacing. And Director Weed, to your question about the Niles Canyon, this is a purely replacement or upgrading the existing pipe. But if it's part of the design requirement, that's something that we will look at in the early stages of the design.
If it's, I don't know, have any idea what the dimensions are, but the size of the Niles Canyon aqueduct portion is about over 6 feet tall and about 4.5, 5 feet wide. That's a pretty big opening. And I don't know what, it would be interesting to learn, maybe this is an opportunity, what right away San Francisco still owns along Peralta. Second, what is the installation there? And sometimes it's cheaper just to put it, if you have a big enough passageway, will fit a new pipe. Just lay in a new pipe.
I have another thought to bring to your attention too, because in our history, we only went into the distribution business in the early 1930s. So if it's 90 years old, it'd be interesting to see what we uncover below ground.
We may be using the old Spring Valley. I don't know. Ed has a better handle on this.
Yeah, this is a very, very old pipe. It's paper thin steel at this point. We are very familiar with it because we do a lot of maintenance on it because it is old and it's beyond its useful life. So we know precisely what's there in terms of this main. It was relined, I think in the 40s or 50s. So this is beyond its useful life. In terms of the Spring Valley pipeline, we're very familiar with that. We understand the right of way. We've looked at that in the past. So you all are asking the right questions, given that this project has not even really started the pre-design work. I mean, this contract here is related to some of the services required in order to just start the pre-design work. So we're a bit of ways away from having solid answers to lots of questions, but we will get there.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? I am not seeing any. Let me open this up to our members of the public online. If any members of the public wish to address the board, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I am not seeing any hands, and we still do not have any members of the public attending in person. Then with that, do I have a motion?
Staff recommendation.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari, Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Hi.
and Huang.
Aye. Will someone please invite Director Akbari back into the room, please? Thank you. Let the record reflect that Director Akbari is back in the boardroom at 6:25, please. So next item is item 6.1, board committee report.
I think we have item 5.8.
Oh, I crossed out 5.8, my fault. Sorry, item 5.8, please.
No problem at all. Authorization of agreement for services to develop incident response and disaster recovery plans for the district's operations technology environment. And for this item, I will turn it over to our Director of Operations and Maintenance, Mr. Dan Stevenson, no relations.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, the board and staff and members of the public. In an ongoing effort to continue to strengthen and fortify our security profile in our operations technology environment, we have the item for the board's consideration tonight. So I'll go ahead and read the summary. I think it sums up what we're requesting here. So summary, the district maintains an operations technology, otherwise known as OT, environment for supervisory control and data acquisition, also known as SCADA, system serving the water supply, treatment, production, and distribution facilities. The OT environment is separate from the business information technology environment, and as such requires its own incident response and disaster recovery, otherwise known as an IRDR plans. The district issued a request for proposals to develop IRDR plans for the OT environment and received 5 proposals. After qualifications appraisal and technical review of proposals, staff recommends entering into an agreement with Enterprise Risk Management Incorporated, doing business as ERM Protect, based on the competitive selection process. There's adequate funding in the budget for this expenditure. At the time of this item was reviewed with the Operations and Water Quality Committee on December 9th, 2025. Board authorization of this agreement will assist the district in meeting its strategic plan goal 1.3, continuously improve emergency preparedness and response capabilities. The staff recommendation is by motion authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with Enterprise Risk Management Incorporated, doing business as ERM Protect, in an amount not to exceed $129,000 or $129,200 for services to develop incident response and disaster recovery plans for the operations technology environment. With that, I'm happy to take any questions, comments.
Questions or comments from the board? Not seeing or hearing any questions or comments from our members of the public online? If you wish to address the board on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. Not seeing any hands. With that, do we have a motion?
I'll move staff recommendation.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
Weed,
Aye.
and Huang.
Aye. All right, now we really could move on to item 6.1, board committee reports. Any questions or comments from the board on the reports listed under item 6.1? I'm not seeing anything here from the board. Any questions or comments from our members of the public online on any of the report listed in item 6.1? I'm not seeing any hands. Then let's move on to item 6.2, operational reports. Any questions or comments from the board on the reports listed under item 6.2? I am not seeing any interest from the board. How about our members of the public online? If you have any questions or comments on any of the operational reports listed under item 6.2, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I am.
And Mr. Nishimura.
Okay. I believe we have a hand, Mr. Nishimura.
We're working on unmuting you. There you go.
Yes, members of the board, no, seeing that no director wanted to comment on the water hardness report, I noticed that in this one sport packet, the hardness levels are slightly higher than desired in certain parts of the service area. Otherwise, the area near Newark seems to be doing quite well. So just wanting to ask the district to make sure that we try to keep our hardness down because it is detrimental to the service life of plumbing and water heating fixtures. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other members of public wish to address the board online? If you wish to do so, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I am not seeing any hands. Then let's move on to item 6.3, staff presentations. I believe 631 is state legislation year-end report by JGC Government Relations, Inc.
That's right. We are happy to welcome back Mr. Jonathan Clay from JGC to share the annual report to the full board. It's not like he'll have anything to report on. Not much happened this last year. Maybe he'll forecast maybe some things for next year. It's nice, and we appreciate Jonathan coming down up from Sunny San Diego to our very colder corner of the world this evening. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, General Manager Stevenson, board members. I think this is officially kicking off. I'm starting my commute again to Sacramento. So, yeah, I left San Diego today. It was 80 degrees. So, having to break out the cold weather gear again. Well, you know, it's been interesting kind of looking back at the monthly reports that we provided over the last year. It's definitely been a very dynamic year. I will talk about kind of this past year. I'll maybe make some predictions on what I think will happen next year, but I don't know if it was here or someplace else, but I completely jinxed myself last year when someone asked me how a new federal administration would impact the politics in California. And I sort of boldly said that, you know, that's high level stuff. And, you know, a lot of the things that happen won't really directly impact the day-to-day things that we have to deal with in Sacramento. Boy, was I wrong. There's a ton of things that are happening at the federal level. You know, we will start to see the impacts of HR 1, which was the, you know, the big, beautiful bill that was passed back in middle of summer. A lot of those impacts to Health and Human Services will start impacting the state's budget one more fiscal year from now, just after this November's elections. We're seeing the president engage more on water politics in California with some recent things. So I think this thread of the federal government having very direct impacts on what we respond and do in California will continue on in 2026. But you know, looking back at 2025 and so where we've been and where we'll be going, you know, when we started the year, we were projected to have a balanced budget, and that very quickly kind of disappeared. You know, we started the year off with the devastating fires in Los Angeles, and that upended many things. We had special sessions to try and address that. Lots of angst around housing, recovery, etc. In the budget, I mean, I'll say it didn't quite pass the giggle test that we were balanced, but on paper we had technically, I think it was a $343 million surplus, which for a budget of our size isn't a lot, but still balanced. Now we're looking at recent projections about 2 weeks ago from the Legislative Analyst's Office. We're projected to have an $18 billion deficit this year, with out-year deficits being in around the $36 billion ongoing. And a lot of this isn't necessarily a revenue coming into the state problem. I think we're already over projections of about $8 billion additional new revenue that's come in. But we really do have kind of a spending problem in California. That, coupled with what we know is going to be coming down the pipe from cutbacks at the federal level. You know, and then looking at just the bill load this year, we had high hopes that with the Assembly putting in bill limits and almost roughly cutting their number of bills they can introduce by half, that we'd have fewer bills, maybe a little bit more thoughtful process on the engagement on different pieces of legislation. But again, my prognostication on that, or prediction on that, I should say, kind of went out the window, because we had over 2,500 bills introduced in both houses this year, which was more than in 2024, even with the bill limit. And we had a total of those 2,500, 917 made their way to the governor. Of those, he signed 794 and vetoed 123 for a veto rate of roughly around 13.4%. Lower veto rate than in previous years. So again, the legislature still very prolific with coming up with lots of bright new ideas for us all to then have to kind of figure out how to implement in 2026. Going back to the budget, as I said, we had a balanced budget in January. We were at a $12 billion deficit that we had to close the gap on in the July 1st budget. I have sneaking suspicions that we will have to be revising that, and I think you will see the legislature come back in early January, and likely we'll see a number of what we'll call early action items, where they'll come back, make changes to the current budget to either try and address the $18 billion deficit, or One of the things, not that it's directly water related, but we continue to hear rumors that one of the early budget actions will be some type of transit relief. And I'm guessing that the Bay Area will be right at the front of that, given the challenges that BART and some of the other transit agencies have been having. As part of that July 1st budget, one of the things that we spent a lot of time working on, the governor had at the May revise thrown into the mix 2 trailer bills that he wanted to see get done. One on Delta conveyance and the other on the state water quality control plan. And so for the months of May, June, July, August, and into September, we spent a lot of time trying to move the needle on getting a Delta conveyance trailer bill passed. And at the end of the day, it did not happen. And this wasn't anything that was trying to tilt the wheel one way or other. It was just simply, let's get to a decision point. Let's make sure that any judicial challenges are done very quickly and timely. Some of the other components of it were to just make it easier for DWR as they negotiate for purchase of property and others with private landowners. But the politics around that, as you probably remember from some of my presentations like that, were very difficult. In fact, part of the leadership change in the Senate with the selection of a new pro tem hinged on which pro tem was going to hold a hard line and say no to any kind of Delta conveyance trailer bill. So I don't know if those politics will change in any way, shape, or form for 2026. And so I think we're going to be kind of stuck with dealing with the cards that we have currently on the table, which likely means as Delta conveyance continues to move forward, we're going to probably spend a lot of time through court challenges, legal challenges, et cetera, as it goes through that process. Counterbalance that with the governor did get a major CEQA reform done for housing. That was all part of that early July budget. So controversial things did get leverage through the process, but as history has shown, anything related to the Delta seems to trump any and all politics in Sacramento.
Jonathan, if I could interrupt you for 1 minute. We did have one important thing happen on water, and that was passage of the California Water Plan, and that was unanimous by both the Senate and the Assembly, led by Senator Ana Caballero from down in Salinas. I was at that press conference in Sacramento, and people were really cheering for that, and it was nice to see the bipartisan support that that plan had, and that was directly influenced by the governor.
Yes, and and I think now we're gonna, as there's very ambitious goals in that bill in terms of identifying new water supplies and production, and I think that will then become a big focus in working with DWR and the State Water Board on how all that starts to come together. But yes,
tangible targets.
yes, very much so, and and I'll come back to this a little bit, but I'll touch on it here. We're going to have a governor's race here in the next year, a new administration coming in. Does Director Nemeth stay on? So we're going to have some transitions amongst leadership across the board that, could impact or delay some of those goals as they get rolled out. So, and then when we got to August of this year, I think we were all very prepared for the usual end of session kind of shenanigans, bills that just kind of miraculously appear out of thin air. I don't think any of us had on our bingo card what was to become Prop 50 and redistricting and how that completely upended the politics of our end of session kind of legislative process. And just to kind of share with the full board, it really had ramifications across the board because not only were you dealing with the national politics of these congressional seats, but you now have legislators that didn't have an opportunity to be able to run for Congress now having an opportunity to run for Congress with these new maps if they survive the legal challenge and get put in place in the early part of this upcoming year. And just as a note, and I don't have the full details of this, but my understanding is we have to have these maps in place sometime in early January because we have early primaries this year. And so everything looks like it's going that way, but just something to keep an eye on in January is, do the maps survive any kind of legal challenges, both from interests here within California? I believe the federal government's also sued the state over those maps. So, but going back to how that kind of played out in the end of session, there are definitely bills that we thought were just on a, rolling through the legislature on their way to the governor that just miraculously stopped dead in their tracks because these new congressional seats broke a different way on that. And, if you're maybe someone in the Senate on a Democratic seat and you're looking at this bill, doesn't help you. So all of a sudden, a lot of bills stopped. A lot of bills that we thought were going to stop all of a sudden miraculously started moving again. So Prop 50, that redistricting effort and the politics around it really kind of changed all the dynamics of the end of session for us. The legislature also, the wheels always fall off the wagon, so to speak, at the end of session. It's never smooth. This year was particularly not smooth. There are a lot of big ticket items that literally went past the deadline. In fact, the legislature stuck around an extra day because they weren't actually able to put into print the final versions of some of these big ticket bills before the 72-hour deadline for when they were going to shut down on Friday. So I will just share, I had a couple big bills that cleared the Senate and went to the governor around 1:30 in the morning on Friday. Luckily, we weren't shutting down then, otherwise I would have lost a few bills. And then the legislature came back on Saturday to quote unquote deal with these, and then, took up another additional 10, 15 bills. So it was definitely a dynamic year. We had a lot of new freshman members this year. I think we had a total of 22 in the assembly. Just again, looking forward to next year with being election year, I didn't realize this until my partner in crime, Ms. Gilbert, pointed this out to me. The entire assembly is up for election next year. All 80 members are up for election, 13 of which are termed out. So we'll get, on top of the 22 new members from last year, we'll get another 13 new ones there. And then half the Senate's also up for election. So it's going to be a dynamic year. It's always dynamic, but when there's elections involved, I like to call it the silly season because politics will reign over policy. Speaking of just looking ahead on legislation, I think one of the things that as the district, I would really keep a focus on, and it's kind of a bigger picture issue, and I think there'll be a couple components to it, but from ACWD's perspective has been this issue that Assemblymember Pappen kind of championed with AI data centers and their water use and being able to quantify it and identify it. That bill was vetoed. I'm assuming it's going to come back. I know there's a lot of broader conversations going at the national level. I saw some articles about folks more focusing on the energy use, but water comes up in that. And so I think that's going to, and at certain points through the process this year on that Pappen bill, the mechanics of how they wanted to quantify water use and whether the city planning department is doing it or turning to the water supplier were a little janky, my technical term for it. So it'll be interesting to see how that firms up and goes through the process next year. But I'm fairly confident we'll see that again. Another interesting thing to keep an eye on, we're going to get our first state of the state from the governor in early January. And best I can tell, the last time he did one of those was just before the pandemic in 2020. So this current governor has been very averse to doing what I think almost every previous governor has done and kind of giving an annual update to the legislature. Haven't done it for a while, and we're going to do it again. So I have some maybe slightly jaded opinion about why he may be doing this in terms of national profile, etc. But there's that. Going back to that being the election season, governor's race, we have a lot of names in it. I don't think I'd say anyone's a clear choice or a front leader in this. I think there's a lot A lot of folks that are going to be jockeying the first part of this year for that. Something that I was just doing some just general research and I didn't realize we have 17 initiatives that have been cleared for circulation to collect signatures for the November ballot. And there's already 3 that have been qualified for the November ballot placed up there by the legislature. So something else, and there are definitely some initiatives in there that as a local government entity could definitely affect how finances are done and things like that. Mainly looking at a lot of it's aimed at cities, the initiative process, but 17's a lot already in the hopper, and I'm sure we'll see more, but that's something we'll kind of keep the district apprised of as the year progresses, especially since some of those could have some impact to ACWD. And I think the one last thing, going back to the governor and his higher presidential aspirations, and this kind of ties back into Delta Conveyance. Recently, California was given a fairly low grade on infrastructure, and the governor's made some comments about it's not him, it's everyone else. And I think you may see a little bit more of sparring between the governor and the legislature over really who's at fault for the lack of some of these high profile infrastructure projects not moving forward. And given, higher aspirations of our governor, I think there'll be a lot of finger pointing. So something worth keeping an eye on. So with that, I think I've kind of regaled you with a little too much information. So, but more than happy to answer any questions or talk through anything that's on your mind here related to Sacramento.
Questions or comments from the board?
I have a couple comments, but
Well, appreciate everything you're doing up there. I mean, I do find it, I never thought about the Prop 50 ramifications. That must have been fun. And now the president or the governor running for president, I found it interesting. He did not address the conference, water conference. I don't know if that was deliberate. The fact we're in San Diego, although we've had governors go to San Diego, opportunity to show leadership, infrastructure. But where does that sell as far as running for president? I mean, you're correct that, he's been a governor of a state that can't build a railroad. I mean, that's shameful. Let alone a water project. I think those will be impacting, but I don't know if he's running from it now. A little concerned that he is, and I don't see much out there in the front of any of the candidates championing that, which is very frustrating. It's just not the shiny penny of politics. Actually get something done versus, looking good. Appreciate everything you're doing for us.
I do too, Jonathan. We had a nice discussion down in San Diego. I don't want to delve too much into this, but I did see one really good political research report, which was combined, combination of a number of different political firms coming together. That really, both for Governor Newsom and Kamala Harris, it's trying to keep their national profile rather than actually thinking that they can become president. And that if the Democratic Party or the opposing party were to actually elect somebody, it would have to be somebody from the northern Midwest states. Because you have to carry, no Democrat has carried those 5 states that need to be carried, and both of these politicians don't have a high profile in those states. So second, you may not be staying for my report, so I'll give it on the Delta Conveyance Finance Authority meeting that we had last month in Santa Clarita at Santa Clarita Water Agency. And that board that I'm the chair of has 11 board members. And I also attended the state water contractors meeting while I was there. We had reports from the executive director of the Delta Conveyance Project, went into great detail on all the elements of the project, the timing, sequence of events, funding, because we're the ones paying for it right now. And the more interesting presentation was from the attorney or set of attorneys from DWR that have been managing the validation lawsuits. There's two separate actions. And the lead attorney said that there may be a decision by the end of December or by the end of January. So we actually postponed our next meeting to February because he strongly feels that a court opinion is going to come out. And on the second one, we could have a surprise too. So things are pressing forward in the courts, and that's good news. I think maybe that's what the governor is waiting on. I talked to Secretary Crowfoot when I was at the Water Education Foundation Annual Summit in Sacramento. He felt the same way. So some input there for you.
Appreciate that.
Otherwise, we really, like I told you down at Aqua, your insights are so good on your monthly reports. It's better than reading Cal Matters or Politico.
Well, I don't know if I go that far. I mean, and we rely a lot on those kind of news entities as well to just be able to keep apprised of things. But I appreciate the kind comments for both you, Director Gunther and Director Sethy. Thank you.
You mentioned we have an early primary. What date is it coming up from? It's coming. Is there going to be a March or?
No, I don't think it's. I think it's a June, but maybe I think it's June.
June, okay.
Yeah, but we have to have maps in place in January. It's not as early as it could be because I think I'm trying to remember, and every presidential cycle, it seems like we in California shuffle things to try and go earlier in the process to make sure that we're somehow relevant.
When do prospective candidates for governor decide that they will stay in Congress and rerun for Congress or not?
I think that will come sometime. If maps are out in January, I'm spitballing here because my internet's not the greatest for my device, so I don't have a phone a friend ability here. I'm guessing sometime in February or March we'll have to have that.
We have a local congressman who has to make that. In the past, he's filed for bigger office than just pulled out to stay in place. So that decision will be in the March, April timeframe. Depends on who we have to educate again, what we do. Thank you.
Jonathan, I really appreciate all of the work that you and Aaron do sitting on the LICA committee. I actually look forward to your presentations because they're very, very in-depth and I feel like we get to cover a variety of topics. You guys represent the district well, so I appreciate that service. Obviously in San Diego, we got to talk extensively about AI data centers, the governor's race, and all of that. So I appreciate the insight that you provide us because it helps us better understand the changing dynamics in Sacramento. And so, yeah, like I said, I look forward to those presentations and looking forward to next week as well. We'll see you back again.
I think so. Here this week, I think the staff have given us some reprieve, and so you won't hear from us.
And then January.
He gets a reprieve.
It's a reprieve.
Yeah.
Much deserved.
He's earned it. Yeah.
Yes.
We don't want to burn him out.
Fair enough.
Yep. Well, I'm just going to echo what Director Akbari said. Thank you for representing us so well. And also doing an extremely good job highlighting upcoming bills or issues that we need to be aware of. That's definitely very appreciated. It's always good for us as a district to get a heads up and figure out a way to work through it than being surprised at the end. And I will have to say, I also look forward to you and Aaron's presentation. Perhaps I am a little bit more jaded because for me it's okay, it's better than a soap opera. This past year, the update and what's going on in Sacramento, I mean, it's not just the legislation that impact to us. There's definitely starting to have an entertainment aspect to it for me, and I might have just been a little bit twisted on that side, but I really enjoy that aspect too. So thank you. With that, I am going to just double check to see if any of our public online has any questions or comments on this particular item. If you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I am not seeing any hands. Then I'm just going to say thank you very much, Jonathan. Have a safe drive back. I assume you're driving back to Sacramento, right?
I'm driving back to Sacramento tonight and then jump on the first flight home to San Diego tomorrow. So,
Have a safe drive back.
oh, all easy. So, but
right.
thank you, all of you, for the kind words, and we really do appreciate working for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, with that, I think we have item 6.4 and 6.4.1 is Aqua JPIA President's Special Recognition for Liability Program.
What is that?
What is that?
Yes, well, this is, our trophy cabinet is officially overflowing now. So, this is a new one. But I think this one's really important because it reflects the intentional work that we've been doing toward many of our strategic objectives that we've had. And it means savings in cost for our district, for our customers. And importantly, it means that we're conducting ourselves in a way that's as safe as we can be for the community, for our employees. And so, which of course is better than any award. But to share what this is all about, I will turn it over to Mr. Wunderlich, who can tell us more.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and public. Our committee members for the Finance and Administration Committee, Directors Sethy and Weed, they get quarterly reports from Amy Reeve and Don Carlisle from our HR and Risk Management Office. And so they're probably a little more familiar with some of these things. But Don is the one who primarily administers our risk management or insurance programs and provides a quarterly report to the committee on the status there. So we do have three general insurance programs or three primary insurance programs through Aqua JPIA, and the annual premiums for each individual program range from about $450,000 to $700,000 per year. So these are pretty substantial, expensive programs. There's the workers' compensation program, which of course covers workplace injuries. The property program, which covers damage to district-owned property. The award and what we're really going to be focused on tonight for just the next, 2 minutes or so is the liability program. And that covers damage to somebody else's property, say like there's a main break that floods somebody's house, it would be covered through the liability program. Let's say a member of the public walks through a district job site and trips and falls on something and hurts themselves. That claim would go through the liability program. Also, any claim related to employment practices. So if somebody says that they were treated improperly on an employment practice and filed a claim against the district, that would also go through the liability program. And so I have the printout over here, but the district did receive Aqua JPIA's President's Special Recognition Award for the liability program. And you receive that award based on total claims the past 3 years representing less than 20% of the total premiums we paid. And so this is definitely a great accomplishment by the entire district. I've mentioned Don and Amy who are administering the program, but also when you consider the types of things that lead to claims in the program, it means, our DMD crews out in the field are doing a good job with what their work sites look like. It means that the folks driving district vehicles out in the community are being careful drivers and those types of things, right? So all of these things add up, with the work of staff throughout the district to keep this experience so low. And so what does this mean for us financially? Our annual premium for the liability program is adjusted by Aqua JPIA based on what's called an experience modification factor. And so basically they calculate this is what the standard premium should be based on our size agency. And then they look at our history and apply an adjustment that can go up or down, right? For every agency that goes down, there's an agency that goes up. And so the lowest possible factor is 50%. And given our success in this program, we received that lowest possible factor. If they actually did a full adjustment based on our experience, the factor for us should be even lower. But with a factor of 0.5, that means district customers in this current fiscal year are saving $685,000 in insurance premiums. And then we've also seen a slight reduction in our workers' comp experience modification in the past year that's saving us another $130,000. So again, great work by staff throughout the district and Don and Amy who are running this program out of the HR and risk office. And so just wanted to highlight the great work they're doing and that it's really helping with keeping our employees and members of the community safe as we go about and do our business.
It's about $12 a month if you work it out per customer, $1 a month.
Yep.
Question, Director Wee?
We're doing very well. What I find interesting, having been on the JPIA board and actually run for it since we're now subscribing to all 4 programs, is that ACWD is one of the largest members of JPIA. And I'm really don't have a good handle on why the other districts of our size and larger choose to primarily, there's no other real group for them to join. Special Districts Association, Drama is even smaller and more diverse. But it'd be interesting in our evaluations as to, we've had good success, but why has the rest of the entirety of the rest of the industry of our size and larger chosen to go elsewhere or do it basically self-administer?
So I asked at this recent conference, Ernie Avila, who's now the chair of Aqua, what the practice was at Contra Costa, and he said they're self-insured. And I said, have you done I said, but you're the chair of Aqua, and you're supposed to be pushing JPIA, Aqua JPIA.
Their board of directors for the last 2 years.
And I said, have you done a comparison of, between your plans? And they also have they self-administer their investment program too. So I was asking him, have they done comparisons? He said, oh, I'll send you the information. I go, Ernie, you've told me that like 3 or 4 times before. But it would be interesting to talk to some of the larger agencies, and maybe there are people at JPIA that have tried to sell them on these programs and they have even greater insight.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Does any members of the public wish to comment or address the board on this issue? If you wish to do so, please. Yeah. I see a hand.
Mr. Nishimura.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. No, I just wanted to congratulate the district as a ratepayer. I believe Director Sethy did the quick math. It is a substantial savings to each and every customer of the district. So I want to commend the district and the staff for taking the steps necessary to drive, claim rates down. And as we all know from our personal experiences, insurance is an industry that is increasing in cost at rates much higher than inflation. So anything that can be done to keep our insurance premium rates down is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much to all of the district and the district staff that are being proactive and taking the correct steps to keep our exposure rate down as much as possible. Thank you.
We should get a new trophy case at the same time.
With the money we saved,
Yeah.
it'd be a really nice trophy case.
No. Thank you for your comment. All right. Do we have any other general managers report?
No other general managers reports this evening.
All right, then let's move on to item 7, director's comments, reports on meetings attended, and agenda item requests. 7.1 is report from Director Sethy on the November 20th Delta Conveyance Finance Authority meeting in Santa Clarita, but I think
I
you
gave-
did.
I
You
gave
did.
2 of 4 updates, so I'm not going to repeat that.
Okay, then,
The third one was we had to do our annual financial audit, and I had work to do with the auditor and with Metropolitan Water Agency during the fall. And our secretary left our board because he resigned from the Met board. And so I had to go through all the questionnaires and the paperwork and everything. So we finally got that done and approved. And the last thing I wanted to point out from the State Water Contractors meeting was the general manager of Santa Clarita gave a really wonderful presentation on their district. And what I wanted to point out was they're about the same number of employees as ACWD, same capital budget for their annual revenue year. And, but they have $250 million in CapEx future costs coming up to address PFAS in their district. Yeah, and Mr. Stevenson understands the complexity of why more than I really do, but their groundwater basin was so heavily impacted by PFAS. They were one of the first water districts in the state, and we went to go visit them to see how they put in their new facilities. But the scale of what they're trying to do, over the geographic area is much more substantial than what we're dealing with. That's my report.
all right, then let's move on to item 7.2, which is reports from all 5 of us on the December 2nd to 4th Association of California Water Agencies Fall Conference in San Diego. So who wants to start?
Start down here, I guess.
All right.
Lovely place to start. I attended Wednesday and Thursday's conference. I did not go down Tuesday. I found the opening keynote, president of Western Growers. It's funny. I went into the conference looking at the agenda and everything, thinking, not too depressing. And I came out of the morning session being depressed. But the funny thing was he spoke very, very well. And it's an interesting thing from the growers in that water's not their only problem. They're getting hammered on every end by really the legislature. And I like to say do good, feel good legislation really beats them up. Legislatures don't understand farming. And farming's different. My cousin was a dairy farmer. It's totally different. Different lifestyle, everything. And, you've got legislation and laws being made by people that don't understand what you're doing. Well, not much different from us. But anyway, it was a little depressing listening to him, but it's nice to hear somebody address some of the problems. And one of the ones, though, he really addressed was Prop 1. Oh, voters, we're going to build storage. Everybody's behind it. Where is it? Nothing. There's nothing out there. We got sites, maybe someday. Maybe I'll see it. But that problem is a problem across the state. As I said earlier today, we can't build a railroad. It took us 20 years to build a fish ladder. 2 fish ladders. Okay, yeah, we did 2. Everybody wanted them, for the most part. Everybody, for the most part, agreed. And it still took us 20 years to build those fish ladders. That's not very commendable. Government, I want to use the words broken. If it takes us 20 years to build 2 fish ladders that we want to build, how are we ever going to build a railroad that not everybody wants to build? Not a bad idea, actually. let alone build a tunnel to fix a system that was not fixed in in the 60s, missing piece. That's kind of depressing, but I'll kind of try to stay positive because eventually we built our fish ladders. So if we keep at it, we can get it done, but it's not easy. And I think we've got some really things going ahead that are going to be difficult for us. After that, I went to, I hate to admit it, I went to a couple of finance sessions. Yes, the cost of reliability. And it was interesting. San Diego was there, Orange County, Contra Costa, and the San Diego Water Authority, they had some really good things to say. They built their desal plant and stuff. And they ended up in a situation where they had too much water because they had good years. And hopefully the public doesn't get the wrong perception. When you build these facilities, you're not building them for a good year, rain year. You're building them for a bad one when you need them. You're building a desal plant for when you have no water. But they're starting to shift. Her board is starting to shift towards affordability in their rates. And the good thing was the guy from Orange County said what I've always said. And I said it at the meeting too. And as John Kennedy said that, if you don't deal with reliability and you strictly look at affordability, you start doing that affordability, and you drop the reliability, then you don't have it when you need it. So reliability, I keep saying it, has to be our number one. Because if you turn on the tap and it doesn't come out, you failed and it's worthless. But he actually brought the same thing up. Kind of brought it, I think, back to, and granted, we don't speak for the San Diego board, but hopefully they'll realize that, they made a good decision. And granted, affordability is a big issue. But you can't stop building things, preparing for bad years if you're so afraid of affordability, because what's going to happen in a bad year, oh yeah, your water will be cheap, but you'll be at 50% less if you even have that. So a little nice that they have a problem like that, but then again, hopefully they won't take their eye off the ball. Then I went to the water, the vision for the future. Carla Namath always speaks well. Hopefully she'll stay. Very impressed with her every time she speaks. I went to Region 5, had to leave early. And then the next day on Thursday, morning session, I made a wrong turn. And I was going to go to the Region 4. Really wanted to go to that invasive species. Intrigued me what they came back with. I took a wrong turn. And I went to my other backup for whatever reason, other finance thing, funding Sigma. And I'm glad I did, because one of the problems I think that comes out of these sessions with the funding of Sigma is, here was a great idea for groundwater. But who's going to pay for it? Who pays for the studies? Who pays for the building of the staffs? And you're bringing these farmers in, and out there it's mostly farmers. Here we have an advantage. We have ratepayers because we're fighting with our neighbors. Only been doing it since the 60s. One would think we knew what we were doing, which we do. Our neighbor might actually think that we do, but of course, that's local government. But the funding of it, there were some issues there, Prop 218, what applies, what doesn't, tiers. And you do tiers out there. It's all up in the air still. But it was a good session, actually. I was, I hate saying I'm impressed by a finance session, but yes, Jonathan, it was a good session. And the closing keynote, I found Tisha Greiner, I think, Pacific Policy Institute, Public Policy Institute. It's nice to know that there's smart people in the room thinking. And she seems to be pretty straightforward, smart thinking person. And there were some interesting things that came up in there about possibilities, concept on research, measuring things, pay for things, concepts of trading. It's nice to hear a perspective that at least somebody like that, and I think hopefully that group, I think they're well received at the state, that maybe we can get some stuff done. There's hope. Pandora opened the box twice. So there's always hope. But all in all, it was a good conference.
Thank you, Director Gunther. Director Sethy?
I was actually bus buddies for 4 days with Letitia when we were on the Lower Colorado River tour with Water Education Foundation. And likewise, I was very impressed with her. So I was down there early on Monday just for the committee sessions that I had to attend. But I just want to highlight a couple. I don't want to overlap on Director Gunther here. So I did find the improving Bay Delta water accounting, making every drop count, a really insightful session. Letitia was on the panel there too. And it seems like there actually is an effort to greatly improve how we account for the outflow of water through the Bay and Delta, especially between good rain years and bad ones. The afternoon session, rethinking water supply through deep sea desalination. I was the only one from our district that attended that. Tim Quinn, who is at Stanford and also was at Stanford and is with Oceanwell now in Menlo Park, was one of the three presenters there. And, John and I have been going to Cal Desal since its inception practically. And we see these presentations there about all these advanced ways of doing deep sea desalination and where the major oil companies want to get into the business because they actually have the technology to go down 15,000 feet and bolt things down to the ocean floor. And so if you look out over the next 100, 200 years, I really think it is going to be the big wave of how we do things in the future. And the cost of electricity is a lot lower, but I mentioned this at a recent board meeting. I thought it was just one water district that was sponsoring this. It's now 7 water districts, including Met, that are funding all the preliminary research and the piloting of these vessels. Whether they can meet what they're saying they can do is, you have to wait on that. But as I was telling Mr. Stevenson, they want to put in 60 vessels north of Santa Monica out in Malibu Bay, where the Malibu community, both politically and the residents, are supporting it. And they got the buy-in from Malibu to put a major pipeline through Malibu Canyon over to the other side of the hills. and put in a distribution system for Malibu, which has a poor reliability of water. So if you look at the amount of pipeline work that they have to put in on land, and the work down on the ocean floor for 60 vessels, it's coming to at least $1 billion project right now. Comparable to the desal plant that went down in Carlsbad. And it may be many years before this goes in, so the cost could escalate quite a bit. But each vessel is supposed to produce 1 million gallons of water per day. That's 60 million gallons of water. And the idea is to pump it inland and be less reliant on state water project supplies. I continue to find that very fascinating. Let's see, let me skip over the other things. I want to focus just on one more thing. I attended the finance meeting with Mr. Wunderlich on building financial resistance, how water utilities should size and invest their reserves. I found this to be the most interesting session at Aqua and the one with the most practical application to our district. And as I said to Mr. Wunderlich, Mr. Stevenson, I think we actually are a model district for what they were explaining there, which a lot of people don't get the concept. And they were giving examples one after the other of finance directors that have really messed up in their government agencies where they don't invest the money properly. We're supposed to do it by safety, liquidity, and then yield. Too many people are chasing yield. They want the highest return, whether it's in the short term or the long term. They're not planning for what their cash flow needs are going to be in the future, where you need a steady maturity of your investments to cover your operating needs. And it's amazing how many people in the industry can't grasp that concept and have MBAs in finance and other things. And how many people have actually messed up. There was one example where several $100 million was lost and the person was not fired from the job because he didn't do anything illegal. It was just gross mismanagement and making really poor decisions on how to invest the money. And I think that as John and I have talked in our committee meeting, we're kind of pushing for our district to become a little bit more conservative over the next few years with how we make our investments. We've had really good returns, but I think it's time to kind of change the strategy a little bit. Director Weed agrees. So that was it.
Director Weed?
Thank you. I would suggest my view is that we should be much more conservative in the near future, given the AI bubble that we're facing. 2008 might reappear. On Director Gunther's comments about agriculture representatives have had a primary role at speakers at Aqua's larger conferences, and yet all of ag is less than 3% of the state's economy. 97% of the state economy, M&I, is a user of about 9% of the state's water, ag 41%, and half of it we give to the environment. All of ag is statistical noise in an economic term. So it's interesting how you work on that water, how you worry about Sigma, et cetera, but they're, from an economic standpoint, they're not major players. Water use and water consumption, major. A report came out today, which I hope to read, related to National Water Resources Council, talking about the value of water, cost of water, pointing out that some agricultural users are not charged at all, and there are municipal industrial users that are charged $2,500 an acre foot. So it is an extraordinarily wide spectrum. And where we play in that, water is available. We don't have a water shortage. You know, a push on conservation, et cetera, really is nice PR and is a political context. But for M&I, we can buy whatever we need. The next point, I'm talking about desalination. I hope to provide you with a report. And it comes down to the point where you look at Wayne Gretzky's comment, statement that you play for where the puck is going to be, not where it is. There was one report that showed that desal had decreased by 45% in the last 10 years. And the trend will be continued down, particularly as we go into nuclear power plants and energy, which is the primary discriminator between recycled and desal, as energy becomes cheap, even more cheap or less costly and available. Availability being the key. Well, recycle or the water source, when it's suspect, we use purified water. That is a misnomer. It's a misstatement. PFAS, currently the contaminant of concern, has a maximum contaminant level of 4 parts per trillion. The health advisory is 10,000 times lower. 4 orders of magnitude, 0.004. Our groundwater basin in Niles Cone is wonderful, but it's contaminated. Trying to get Hetch Hetchy's a wonderful water supply, and desalination is a much more long-term water supply because it doesn't have the contaminants existing and emerging that are coming on regulations, pharmaceuticals, plastics, and who knows what else they'll come up with. Viruses. Why would you even give consideration to a suspect and extraordinarily contaminated water supply? So as this came out in the hearing and the missions, because we're coming back to the presentations we heard, some have gone into, we've been throwing environmental barriers, ocean well, 1,600 feet below sea level, they're going to have to go out about 5 miles offshore to find a depth that'll work it. And then you're trying to pump 16 million gallons a day onshore from 5 miles depth. That is an engineering challenge, which is almost incomprehensible, but their seawell, which uses buoys, is far more potentially effective, but my God, you can see them above the surface. It's the political insanity of California water policy. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so John, I assume that's your combination of director's comments and Aqua report, right? Aqua conference report, yes?
Yeah, that was
Okay,
related
great.
to the
Thank you.
conference, which had sessions which, again, the water world works in mysterious ways.
Thank you, Director Wee. Director Akbari.
Fortunately, we no longer hear the co-equal goals argument. Thank you.
I'm going to start with a quick director's comment and then
Go for it.
I'll to the Aqua update. I just wanted to express my appreciation to the board for appointing me president for next year, and largely a ceremonial role, but you know, I appreciate the board's trust. A lot of my family actually joined online to watch item 5.1 as well, and my sister messaged that my 6-month-old nephew watched as well. He's allowed no screen time. Today's ACWD meeting was the first time that he was allowed screen time, and so for me, a very humbling experience. Yeah, I'm looking forward to 2026 for sure. Getting to the Aqua conference, I'm going to touch on just a few points. I'm going to start with I think one of the benefits of Aqua is you get to network with other agencies and directors as well. There were a couple of topics that kept coming up. One was I was really selling our internship program at ACWD. I'm super proud about that program that we've launched. Thank you, Ms. McLeod, for all the work that you put in. I actually used Megan Lee's example about the work that she did on the RANS program. And I think for a lot of directors, especially from smaller districts, it was really eye-opening for them about the types of projects that they can open up for interns. And I think there was a lot of excitement there. And so I feel like we're moving on the right path. I'm just very excited about that program specifically. The other topic that coming up was around the governor's election. And I think there's disappointment, but not surprise that none of the major candidates have really staked out water as being a policy area that they're focused on. But again, I can't say that there's any surprise there. But it was good to kind of talk through everyone's thoughts on some of the candidates and where they land on water policy. One of the sessions that was most interesting to me, and I think I've talked to a lot of staff and directors about this already, but there was a session on AI and security. And obviously I have quite an interest in that. That was the Region 1 event, Balancing AI Innovation and Cybersecurity for California Water Systems. I found that this session was very informative, especially compared to previous conferences where they've touched on AI, but I felt like this one had a lot more practical applications. To kind of summarize the three key pieces that I took away as being like advice for districts. First of all, obviously have an AI policy in place, which I know we have adopted an AI policy, and I think we're ahead of the curve there. The second, where it sounded like a lot of districts are falling down, is around training. It's great to have that policy in place, but what a lot of districts were finding was that employees weren't necessarily following the guidelines around what is acceptable use. And this came up in particular around PII and making sure that you don't put in any customer information into a public LLM. And so I think that's one area that I hope that we focus on and make sure that our employees know what is acceptable use with all of these AI tools. And then the third advice that they had was around having small but achievable targets and goals when rolling out AI. And I thought that was really interesting. They really talked about having starting out with very narrow use cases before starting to open up AI usage across the organization. So I know I mentioned this to Mr. Awoke as well while we were at the conference. And so I know we're working towards that, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here. Previously, I was very pessimistic about the application of AI within the agency, but I think feeling a little bit more cautiously optimistic that way. Finally, I'll just mention security continues to come up as being a really critical concern, especially because of AI. The types of threats are evolving. The number of threats are increasing. They mentioned a story about a water agency in Norway where an AI developed tool opened up a dam of some sort and flooded a city in Norway. And so, I just want to make sure that we're continuing to stay on top of that. I know we've hired a CISO as well, so I'm excited to work with them on how we can continue to just stay ahead of the curve as best we can. Yeah, that's my report from Aqua.
All right. So as for me, before the conference, I did attend 2 sessions related to Delta Conveyance Project. And the first one is just a project update. I think the take home for that is they are working on a better cost estimate, and based on, I guess they're going out taking geotechnical samples, and based on the sampling results, they anticipate to give a third cost estimate update in early 2027. And as we all know, we are looking forward to that number, so we could evaluate if it makes business case for Alameda County Water District to participate in that project. And I also sit in on a session on Delta conveyance subsidence. Most of the subsidence is occurring down near King City. Apparently in certain segment of State Water Project, up to 46%, the capacity reduction is up to 46%. That does impact the overall water delivery down south. The reason I kind of follow is because we do need that segment of State Water Project to bring our water back from semi-tropic. So there is a nexus to us. I do wonder how they're going to pass on the cost. Yes, there will be a cost sharing between State Water Project and the Central Valley Project because there is a shared segment. But State Water Project contractors will be picking up most of the costs, a very big chunk of the costs. I don't know how that would translate into costs to ACWD when we try to bring the water back from semi-tropic. So I actually would be interested to hear from staff at some point on how that cost would be allocated. And as far as the Aqua conference itself, I sit in on the PFAS session and I had the pleasure of hearing a talk from Santa Clarita and the challenges, we'll just say challenges they're facing on PFAS treatment. But what was interesting coming out from that is, I have to read my note, but there seems to be a statement about they're potentially Prop 4 funding for it, or am I just hearing it wrong? So that might be an interesting thing. And then actually the most interesting session I sit in was actually on generative AI. So I have never thought of applying AI in the way, so they use it as I will say it as a memory bank. So they basically took a lot of information from a senior employee who is very knowledgeable, and they fed all that information into this generative AI model. And that model would actually start answering questions that would otherwise internal employees would pose to that senior person. So I was wondering, can we use that at ACWD as a way to retain the knowledge of our departing senior employees? Because every time we have a retirement, a lot of our knowledge kind of walk out the door. If there is a way to feed in all their emails, their writings, and somehow have AI assist us to make sense out of all that bits and pieces of email and become a repository for the knowledge. That would actually be an interesting concept. So this would be a ask for staff to look into it. I'm not saying you have to do it because there are definitely security issue as Director Akbari has identified, but I thought that was an interesting concept and potentially an interesting application of AI. So those are my highlights from Aqua. I attended a lot of similar sessions as other directors. And yes, the weather was great down there. All right, with that, let's move on to item 8, closed session. Item 8.1 is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, agency designated negotiators at Stevenson, Jonathan Wunderlich, Laura Heides, Amy Reeve, and Stacy Q. Employee organization, the Alameda County Water District Operators Association.
Yeah, and President Huang, staff placed this item on the agenda a number of days ago before the packet was published with the expectation that we'd have some more news to report. However, we do not at the moment, and so staff advises there's no need to meet into closed session on this item. But I do suggest that we go ahead and convene into closed session for item 8.2.
All right, and item 8.2 is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, title General Manager. With that is 7:40, and the board will move to the operations conference room for the closed session. All right, is 8:42. The board has returned from closed session. Item 8.2 is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, title General Manager. The report back is no action taken. So the very last item for this meeting is for me to actually thank the board for supporting me as the board president for this past year and to transfer this really large mallet to Director Akbari. Congratulations.
Oh, I need to see you.
I will just fuck off.
There you go. Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Good luck. And condolences.
And you get to finish the meeting.
Awesome. It is 8:42 and we will adjourn today's meeting.
Yay!